Being a mom to a teenage son is not easy. It's even more difficult if you have to raise him alone. My husband committed suicide when Henry was 2 years old. It was a Sunday morning. Henry was playing with his dad in the backyard, and I went to get groceries. When I came home, I found the house excessively quiet. I looked through the kitchen window and saw Henry was standing outside, staring at the big tree in the corner. Coming out, I saw the most sickening sight of my life. My husband was hanging by a rope from a branch of that tree, and Henry was standing under it, watching his dad's dead body like a statue. The shock of this violent incident shook him to such an extent that after that, my son wasn't my son anymore. His psychiatrist says he's lost the ability to be shaken, at least in an emotional way, and that's true. My son isn't scared of anything anymore. He's 13 years old now, doesn't talk to anyone, spends most of his time in his room. I'm always worried sick about him. Recently, I had to withdraw him from school. He was being bullied a bunch of times. Not once did he fight back. It's not that I want my son to go out in a fighting rage, but his teacher said the other day 3 boys were kicking him while he lay still on the ground. After a point, he just got up, laughing weirdly, as if he was enjoying the pain. His lips were bleeding, and he licked off the blood while saying,
"It tastes good."
I'm homeschooling now, but recently he's built up a strange fascination. He likes watching mukbang videos. That's the one time I see his eyes dazzle. Some of my friends told me it can be a stress-relieving experience. Thinking it would give him peace of mind, I went with it for a couple of days, but suddenly something weird happened. It was 1:30 a.m. when I heard sounds downstairs. I went to Henry's room, but he wasn't there. I slowly came downstairs and saw my son sitting on the table watching a video of a woman eating live spiders. "Henry, what are you doing here?"
I was thinking to open a channel of my own.
"Of what?"
I want to make videos like this. Will you help me?
"Okay. Go to sleep now. We'll talk about this tomorrow, okay?" He looked at me with a blank face, then went upstairs, murmuring,
I would love to make videos like this. I would love to eat.
The next day, I called his psychiatrist and told him everything about that night. The psychiatrist told me that I should support Henry. This might strengthen our bond and also distract his mind to a new dimension. So I sat him down and said I would help him. I took him grocery shopping where he bought a bunch of ready-to-eat snacks. Coming home, he placed a video camera on the table and started eating snacks one by one. Soon, I got used to this. I subscribed to his channel, and my son found a new identity over social media. Being a teenager, I just let him be, because he had already been through a lot, and for the first time, he wanted to do something on his own. His videos started low-key. He had 400 to 500 subs, and every week uploaded a new video. At first, I watched all of his videos, but soon lost interest. It was him eating chocolates or fried chicken, sitting at the dinner table. Henry was a well-built teenager, but due to his mental illness, his face looked pale most of the time. One morning, when I woke up and checked my phone, I found a notification. It was Henry's mukbang video that he had uploaded last night. The title read, "Delicious Earthworms." I sprung from my bed and played the video. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My 13-year-old son was eating live earthworms in front of the camera. He was grabbing a handful of crawling worms from a mud-filled pot and shoving them inside his mouth. Some worms were trying to come out from his mouth while he chewed on them mercilessly. Half-eaten chunks were dropping on the table while he was drooling in a very scary way. His face looked horrifying as he went on smacking the worms like French fries. I went to his room and saw him sitting in front of the computer. He was reading the comments on his recently uploaded video.
Look, Mom, my videos have got 15K views. I just got 200 subs this morning. People are finally paying attention to me. I can't believe this. I finally exist.
I saw it at that very moment. I knew my son was not well at all, and I had always struggled to accept the fact. I sat close to him and said in a caring voice, "But Henry, this is very disturbing. You're not supposed to eat worms. Let's go to your psychiatrist. You're not well."
I'm not going anywhere. Stop telling me that I am sick. The reason I didn't fight back those bullies was that their kicks made me bleed and I liked how blood tasted. I want to try new things and create an identity of my own. I'm tired of being the boy who watched his father commit suicide, okay?
Fine. You sit here. I'll call your therapist. I turned around to get my phone from my room when something heavy and blunt hit me at the back of my head and everything went black in front of my eyes. I could feel my hands and legs tied with tape while someone kept dragging me down. What's happening? Henry?
Don't you worry. Just sleep. All will be fine.
I wanted to ask more questions, but I passed out with a throbbing pain once again. I don't exactly remember how long I was out. Splashes of water touched my face, and I woke up feeling confused and clueless. Henry was standing right next to me and watching me. His eyes were burning with evil intentions. He smiled like a psycho and said,
Guess what, Mom? You are my new addition.
He then looked at the camera, pointed right at us, and said,
Hi, guys. Today I will go live. Like I promised, I will be tasting blood today. And guess what? My mom is going to volunteer.
What? Are you insane? You're going to drink your mother's blood on a live telecast? What the hell is wrong with you, Henry?
Guys, don't mind her reactions. She's not a camera person, so let's start.
Henry walked up to the sink and took out a big knife from the knife stand. He started walking at me. Henry, untie my hands. Right now. This is my final warning. Untie me. Now!
Relax, Mom. I am not going to kill you. You'll only be a test kit.
I was sweating in fear. My son was coming at me with a knife. God, how did I let it escalate to such a level? Henry came near me and cut my cheek. I screamed in pain as blood dripped from the wound. He licked the blood off my face while making direct eye contact with the camera and said,
Delicious.
He went on, making small cuts on my hands, neck, and licking the blood. I started sobbing while my sick son pulled off this madness. I was screaming for help and crying out loud when our front door broke down. My next-door neighbor rushed in with the cops, and they finally arrested my son. My neighbor had heard screaming coming from my house and called the cops. My son is now admitted to a mental institution. They have to give him electric shocks as a treatment. He now barely recognizes me. The last time I went to talk to him, he did something horrible. We were standing in the hallway. I was trying my best to remind him about his house and how much I love him when he looked into my eyes and said,
Hey, are you going to eat that?
What? Eat what? Without responding to my answer, he grabbed a lizard crawling on the wall and tore its head from the body. As the blood started to drip from it, he opened his mouth wide and started to drink the lizard's blood. Nurses came running, hearing my scream, and they dragged him back to his cabin. As I kept screaming in fear, my son just laughed at me.
It's delicious, Mom. Try it. Just try it. It's delicious.
Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying the video. If so, please leave a like. And also, a small percentage of people that watch my videos are actually subscribed. If you want to support this channel and make this channel reach the 1 million mark, please consider subscribing. It's free and you can change your mind later. Enjoy.
My name is Emily Miller, and for as long as I can remember, I've had a pretty shitty life. Orphaned as a child, I had to jump from one foster home to another until I was 18, when I was finally abandoned by the system and left out on the street. Living on the streets was hard, as I had to struggle for basic needs like food and shelter. But through all this, I had a reason to wake up and try again every day. And that reason was Jace Parker. Jace was literally my oldest friend. I had met him during my early days living on the street, and he began to look out for me. He always took me to the good soup kitchens whenever I was hungry and needed a warm meal. He brought me clothes whenever he got some from people's donations, and he constantly looked out for me, as the streets weren't safe for a homeless woman at night. At first, I was really skeptical about him, as I wondered why he was being so nice to me without asking for anything in return. But every time I looked into his eyes, I realized that the man called Jace Parker was just a really good person. It happened on a gloomy Thursday afternoon. Jace and I were at a soup kitchen when a strange man walked up to us. He told us his name was Mr. William Ryder, and that he had a business proposition for us.
Seeing as you guys are homeless, with little to no money for food or other basic needs, what if I told you that I could give you a job where all you had to do is eat?
I was baffled at his offer, as it seemed extremely shady, and I knew that no one would pay people to eat free food. I told myself that there had to be a catch. The man then proceeded to show us a mukbang video. I watched as extremely frail-looking people shoved huge amounts of food down their throats. Watching, I knew that there was something odd about it because the people in the video were eating so fast they were basically inhaling the food. They also wore loose, big clothing, and I couldn't understand why people who were eating this much food still looked frail. While it was strange, it still seemed like a tempting offer, as getting paid to eat free food was way better than what me and Jace were managing. But before I could say anything, my friend Jace said,
I'll do it, but I'd like half of my pay and any leftover food from the videos to be given to my friend, Emily.
I began to protest when he dragged me over and said,
Look, Emily, we don't know who this guy is, and I know I always told you that the first rule of the street is to trust no one, but it'd be really dumb to turn down this offer. So let me do it. If I try it out and it's sketchy, I promise I'd leave and come back. But I really don't want you to do it because we don't know how the job is going to be, and I want to keep you safe.
I looked at him and I saw the care in his eyes, so I agreed to let him do it. We then walked back to the strange man and accepted the offer. 2 weeks after that day, I had become seriously worried, as I hadn't seen my friend Jace since he started working for Mr. William. The only time I saw Mr. William was at the end of the week, as he would bring coolers of food and some money that Jace sent to the shelter that I was staying at. Each time I'd ask him questions like, "How is Jace? Can I see him? When is he coming back?" But Mr. William always replied with, "Soon." The weeks eventually turned to months, and it finally reached a point where I couldn't take it anymore, as I knew that Jace would never abandon me or leave me alone. Even if he was sending money and food, I knew that he'd still want to see me. I had a feeling that something was wrong, so I bought a really cheap phone with some of the money I'd been getting, and I looked up Mr. Williams' mukbang videos. I went through the recent ones, and I saw Jace in most of them. He looked extremely frail and dead inside as he ravenously ate huge amounts of food. He looked thinner than before, and I also noticed that he, like the rest of them, ate like their life depended on it. It was strange to me, as even when we were extremely hungry on some long, hard days, he never ate like that. So I waited till the end of the week, when Mr. William visited, to drop off the things Jace had sent me, and as soon as he left, I decided to follow him back, in hopes of finding where Jace was being kept. I trailed Mr. William all the way to a strange warehouse. I watched him suspiciously look around before going in. I waited a while before I managed to get into the warehouse through the back door. I got in using one of the many skills I had learned from living on the streets. As I snooped around, I passed a room that looked familiar. I soon realized it was the room where Mr. Williams' videos were filmed. I eventually reached a door where I heard numerous muffled noises coming from. The door was slightly opened, and as I got closer, I could hear someone shouting in anger. I peeked through the crevice to see what was going on, and what I saw made my skin pale. I saw numerous people stacked like sardines. Their hands and feet were tied, and the smell coming from the room was awful. They were all gagged, and they looked more dead than alive, as their obvious starvation made their skeletons incredibly visible through their paper-like skin. As I took in the scene, I noticed Mr. William in the middle of the room. He was passing out large clothing to some of the starved people, ordering them to wear it. A man who looked extremely starved began to fumble as he looked too weak to stand on his own 2 feet, so he fell. With no hesitation, I watched as Mr. Williams struck him hard with the back of his hand. The man began to bleed, when Mr. William looked at him with disgust and said,
Your starvation doesn't give you the right to mess up. We have a video to shoot, and I don't want any mistakes. We're falling behind on schedule, and I need to publish more videos so that I can get more money. Remember, any trouble will result in 6 more starvation days. So eat as much as you can, 'cause you never know when you're gonna have your next meal.
I watched as one of the starved people rushed to help the bleeding man on the floor. He looked up at Mr. William and said, "You can't do this to people." And Mr. William quickly replied with a blow to the mouth. He then got out a stick and began to beat him mercilessly. He had a sick, psychopathic grin on his face as he said,
Telling me what I can and can't do, huh? Maybe 8 more days of starvation will teach you a lesson. And after that, you'll realize that you stopped being people when I took you off the streets. You're nothing but a show cow to star in my videos. And the sooner you realize that, the better.
I froze when my eyes finally recognized the person who was being beaten like an animal. It was my very dear friend, Jace Parker. Seeing him like that made me have a mini mental breakdown as my mind couldn't take it. So I screamed and ran to go get help. I heard people chasing after me, but I managed to make it out before I was caught. I ran all the way to the police station, screaming, and when I finally got there, I was turned away, as they all assumed I was some crazy homeless woman talking gibberish. Turned away by the law, I knew I had to do something, as no one else cared. My mind had put everything together. I realized that Mr. William took homeless people in under the lure of a good job, and once they agreed, he would tie them up and lock them in a warehouse. He would starve them for weeks, so that when they were finally given food, they would eat as much as they could, as they had been deprived of it. I also realized why Mr. William targeted homeless people, as he, like everyone else, knew that no one would care if one of us went missing. So I decided to share my story with the world, in hopes that someone would do something to help me get justice for Jace and all the other people who are still under Mr. Williams' captivity to this very day.
My girlfriend is a fighter, and I can't be prouder of her. Lily and I met in a pub one night. She is of average height and pretty. Any guy would be lucky to call her his girlfriend. I went up to her and offered to buy a drink. What felt weird was the way she was all alone, sitting in the darkest corner of the pub, looking at the people around her with wide, confused eyes. At first, I thought she is an introvert who decided to hit the pub to socialize one sudden day. But the more I talked to her, I realized she is hiding the secret. She got wasted that night, and as we were dancing, she hugged me and said,
"Don't let me go. I'm very lonely."
Being a foster kid my whole life, her words made my heart ache. I know how it feels to be all alone in this cruel world because I wake up and go to bed with the same feeling every day. I had no idea where she lived, and leaving her in that pub, being all drunk, didn't seem the right thing to me. So I brought her to my place. Since then, she is staying with me. I didn't mind because I earn well enough to take care of both of us, and I liked being around her. Soon, she became my family. One day, when I came home to get something in the afternoon, I found the main door wide open. I thought Lily left, but as I entered my bedroom, I discovered her dark secret. She was lying on the floor, unconscious, heavily dosed with drugs. Yes, my girlfriend had a drug problem, but unlike other guys, I didn't judge her or try to get rid of her. Loneliness can make people do terrible things, whereas Lily can still be saved. I took her to the nearest hospital and got her the medical help she needed. After 2 days, she got discharged and came home. I sat her down to finally address the elephant in the room. Lily, how are you feeling?
"Why did you save me?"
Because I love you.
No one loves a wreck.
I do. I'm a wreck myself. Trust me, we are perfect for each other. Just let me help you.
How?
I have an idea that will help you get past this drug problem.
What is that?
You just have to channel your addiction to something else, like food.
Food?
Yeah, you can even have your own YouTube channel. These eating videos, or rather known as Mukbang, bring popularity overnight. Think about it. You'll be eating your favorite dishes and also earn money. We will be so happy together. please, let's give it a try. Lily looked at me with a confused face, like she had no faith in my brilliant idea. But I was confident. I knew this will work well for both of us. I can't let her ruin her life. The only way she will be alive is not to be alone ever again. After a lot of discussions, she finally agreed to try this. I went to the supermarket and bought all the ingredients to make her some delicious beef steak. She sat down in front of our dining table and we rehearsed some lines for her intro. I prepared a juicy steak with all my special ingredients and placed it in front of her. She smiled at me and I said, "Let's do this. Action."
Hi everyone, I'm Lily and this is my first mukbang video. Today I'll be eating beef steak made by a special friend of mine, so let's start.
She cut a big piece with a knife and put it in her mouth with a fork. As her tongue touched the juicy meat, I saw her eyes sparkle. For the last 2 days, she couldn't eat properly at the hospital, so this steak was like a treasure to her. She started gobbling it piece after piece, like she can't get enough. Within 10 minutes, she finished the entire steak and sipped the lemonade with comfort on her face. I was so happy seeing her contained like this. We uploaded the video and her journey as a YouTube personality started. She slept for an entire day after having a complete meal. When she woke up the next morning, she looked so radiant and glowing. I walked to her bed and kissed her on the cheek. "Good morning. Someone had a long-needed nap."
What happened last night?
"You uploaded your first mukbang video. Don't you remember?"
Oh, yeah. It feels like I woke up after a year. My head feels so heavy.
Well, that will be around for a while, but I will help you get over your withdrawals. I'm not going to leave you alone for a second, Lily. Now, I record every single meal of her. Though after a meal, she almost sleeps for an entire day. This is, in a way, good, because she doesn't have to go through her withdrawals. She never talks about taking drugs ever, and I just love the way she eats after waking up from a deep sleep. I tie a napkin around her neck as she keeps dropping food on her clothes like a child. She is so adorable. I just can't get enough of her. No matter how worked up I get, I always cook for her. There's no way I'm letting her eat takeaway foods because they won't have my special ingredients. Apart from all the spices, I put another ingredient in her food, a small amount of morphine. Yes, I know it's not necessary, but it helps her to fall asleep easily. Also, it makes her forget to leave my house. I don't like it when sometimes she talks about leaving me. She has no idea what this world will do to her if I am not in her life. I mix a little amount of morphine in her drinks. After sleeping and not eating for an entire day, when I serve her the food, she forgets everything and jumps onto her plate. She gobbles them with wide eyes, and that gives me so much peace. Sometimes I create a small gap in her diet by not giving her the morphine. I don't want her to lose her memory completely. I have been to a house which was in a dingy alley. I got all her belongings here and also did some research on her background. Like me, she has no one as well. I knew we will be perfect for each other. Tonight, I am going to bake her a wedding cake. She will be surprised knowing we are getting married tonight. But I don't want to disrupt her routine, so the entire ceremony will happen after she eats. I will carry her in my arms while she is highly intoxicated with the morphine and dance with her. She is the perfect life partner. No complaint, no demands, and yet so calm. She seems even more beautiful when she sleeps. I kiss her, play with her hair, and she never says no. She just lies down next to me, keeping her eyes closed, looking like a peaceful dream. I feel so lucky that she met me at the pub and no one else. I will do exactly what she asked me to do. I'll never let her go. Just think about it, how happy we will be. None of us will ever be lonely. As I said, loneliness can make people do terrible things.